I, as
Oh, forgot that.
absolutely,
Okay.
and we're recording. As stated, before I start, I want a disclaimer that I am a peer mental health advocate, which means I live what I am speaking in sense of I have my own personal life experiences that I can speak from a point of reference. I can speak about what tips and tricks I have learned. I can speak about what experiences I have learned. I can speak about what lessons, what resources I've used or that I've shared or have been shared with me. But I am not a psychiatrist, psychologist, clinical social worker. I'm not any of those things. I am also when peer, the word peer is used as a person who if someone is speaking to me who has a similar situation, I will most likely have a relation in depth to what they're going through because I'm either currently going through it or I've gone through it and I can have a stronger relation. Um, so when it comes to the wellness aspect, if no one even really knows what wellness means, the general definition of wellness is the act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis to obtain better physical and mental health outcomes so that instead of just surviving, you're thriving. And that comes from Pfizer. It also comes from quotes from Mental Health America, things like that. So that's the general meaning of wellness. So for me, in my journey as an advocate, as a peer who was going through life undiagnosed with post traumatic stress disorder, certain various traumas that I had experienced, I was really emotionally off balance and I didn't know why. I did a lot of self sabotaging behaviors. I was always very anxious, very nervous sometimes. And I discovered this very early on in my young adulthood, where it really took peak. Whereas I thought it was just brushed off as just growing up as a kid, experiencing life in New York City, but it was a lot more than that. And so when I took the journey into what learning what wellness was, it really wasn't until my mature age, until my 30s and 40s, technically in my late 30s, early 40s. Um, so I had to start unlearning what I learned in terms of surviving, how to thrive. What does thriving mean? What does that look like? Um, So the act of wellness for me was learning how to practice healthy habits in an unhealthy environment, learning how to practice better physical and mental health outcomes in outcomes that were very toxic and unsupportive. And so that was a challenge for me for 12 years. Um, I had to recognize what things that were said to me, things that were done to me were not okay and just normal to do, normal to say to me, um, or normal to treat me as I had been conditioned to think. It's a lot of cultural aspects to that too. And that came through um, the first step for me, it actually did come through therapy. I did go to a therapist, and that's where I really learned the more in depth what wellness means, its definition, the different dimensions of it. And we broke it down step by step, day by day. Built a relationship based on the things that I needed. Had a very honest conversation about being very unsure about therapy, if it was right for me. So it took some time to build that. Um, and then from there, I was introduced to the creative aspect of practicing healthy habits in wellness, which is a dimension called creative wellness. And so I was introduced to art therapy, particularly visual arts, not just putting colors on a paper or a canvas, but thinking of what colors felt to me, what emotions I equated with certain colors, and diving into that using the color theory as a space to kind of open up and talk while I'm painting. And subconsciously, I noticed that I would start to open up about things that I never even thought about before, because my mind was so relaxed on what was in front of me, which was the exploring and getting my hands, messy and not having to worry about it being right or wrong. And it was a very interesting path, just to be quite, brief with the art therapy part. We could probably dive a little bit more into that later, I suppose. Um, and so that was the next stepping stone in conjunction with talk therapy. So it wasn't just talk therapy, it was also talk and art, as the pillars of practicing healthy habits, making commitments to go, in sequence to my appointments, because I would not make appointments sometimes in the past. I was constantly, not showing up or things like that. And so that stopped, because it gave me a sense of um, accountability, but something that was comfortable for me to hold myself accountable for. And we would go over the benefits and the progresses of me being accountable. That would fall under intellectual wellness, seeing how disciplining yourself and practicing habits without being minded and independently or autonomously, how they start to become a trainer for your brain to help you do things on your own. That's another aspect. So we dived little by little to certain aspects of wellness. Um, and then eventually, excuse me, and then eventually, um, years went by and I continued these practices. And then I started to think about my physical health over time. And I was always interested in holistic healing. I was never a fan of medication. Not saying that it's bad. I'm not saying that everyone should just, oh, don't take your medication. No, I'm not in that position to tell anyone how to cure or heal or maintain their health. Um, um, but I did like plant-based medicines. I did like start exploring herbs, and I did start exploring acupuncture and meditation and yoga and things that are not so popular before they became popular, like sound bowl, sound therapy, um, deep tissue massage, things like that. And it actually was very, very, very relieving for me. And it helped me to ease a lot of pain that would cause me stress, which would cause me unwellness. Um, so all these things I started carrying over the years, and they definitely came in handy when the COVID-19 pandemic came out. And it was a great and serious test of wills, because there was such an energy of hopelessness and fear and death and doubt, and it was so scary. And thinking about it, it really was like the toolbox to go to. And I did not just sit and just play with a sound bowl like hours and hours and hours. I had to combine little things here and there that I needed to be able to cope, because I still had to, take care of my family. I still had to work at the time. I was still working for the DOE remotely. So that was a major shift. DOE meaning the Department of Education. So I was working for them at the time while looking out for my mom, for my parent, and at the same time being that support system for my son. So it was a lot. I don't know if I'm rambling, so you can stop me at any time if I'm going off subject, please. Um,
Stories heal. Sharing stories heals.
okay. So, um, one thing I learned from my wellness journey in these tumultuous times was my personal strength. Um, I think because I knew what to do, I felt selfish staying home. I didn't want to stay home and keep all this to myself. I didn't want to stay home and just hunker down. And, of course, I played it safe. I followed the protocols and all that other stuff. But um, I noticed around me there was a lot of just so much anguish and so much fear that I didn't want to stay in the house. I wanted to help engage the communities close to me as much as possible. So that's when I started, actually, yes, through Instagram, ironically, I started looking at things online, what I could do, what I could get involved in the community that was safe. And then I started doing that. And um, I joined a walking group so I could stay healthy and walk and keep walking. It was called the Bronx Soul. We met every Saturday and we would walk to historical areas in the Bronx. So actually, it opened up a whole new door for me. Walking for an hour and a half to a historical spot in the Bronx. I didn't even know about that as a Bronxite for almost what, 45 years, 47 years, 45, 46 years. I was like, I didn't know that about the Bronx. So I didn't know that about the Bronx. And so it became an enrichment and an encouragement at the same time for my physical health, my environmental health or wellness, my intellectual wellness by receiving knowledge or education, okay, and social emotional by still staying connected even though we were socially distanced. It was a very responsible, walking group. And they're on Instagram, so there's a little plug. Um, so that was more encouraging to say, oh wow, even though we're in a pandemic, I see people becoming more creative. They're roller skating again, they're biking more often. People were changing the direction of where their health mindset was. And I thought that was very encouraging. And so I said, well, what else can I do? Um, so I became very passionate about community engagement beyond just going to school and engaging with the kids in the school. I wanted to engage wholeheartedly more into the community. It was ironically through this experience with the pandemic that I was actually be able to touch the community ground. I want to say, really kind of put my hands really on it and really see what I had not had the time to see before because I had to work and all of that. That was like, tunnel vision. And I was seeing the things that the people in the community were really concerned about. I was hearing what their issues were that were already in place before COVID. And I was like, wow, what can I do? So I started to volunteer more and more. I volunteered for community pantries. I volunteered um, to teach some basic art classes. The first community pantry that I got involved in was at the Bronx Collab. I was going there every other Saturday, or once a Saturday of the month for their food pantry distribution. And I absolutely loved it. I miss it so much. And I learned more and more. So, you know, the wellness for me was starting to become more about education and connection, education and connection, getting more connected, being more involved, getting more in touch, and seeing what the needs are. And I firmly believe that everyday people can do extraordinary things. And if we just learn about each other and learn what each other needs and get that communal spirit and mindset back, that's social wellness, environmental wellness, spiritual wellness, because everybody is coming together and doing something that's a need, whether it's major, moderate, or minor, for the community. And if that continues, that reciprocity, that's very healing just from everyday people knowing what the need is and how to fulfill it, bringing your resources together. And so, fast forwarding to fast forwarding to 2021, um, I still wanted to do more. And I noticed that there wasn't a lot of talk about art in the community. And if it was always school related, which isn't a bad thing. I was just noticing that. And I picked up how art seemed to be very calming and very focus basing with the youth I was working with when I started, um, when I actually, fast forwarding to 2021, started my community passion project, which is called the Butterfly Project. And what I did was through the mentoring of my coach, um, I was inspired by letter writing because I was always writing letters when I was a kid. I was writing letters, unfortunately, to some folks around the community that, their mindset was in a particular space. And unfortunately, they became incarcerated. And so I started letter writing in that sense, in that form, very young. And it's not a pleasant memory, but it's a reality. And what happened from there was having that experience again, writing to those who could not have the freedoms to go where they needed to go, or where they, be separated from family, was something that, um, because we were in lockdown and because we were all, enclosed, the disconnect was palpable, and it made me think about, what if I started a project of my own, but just added a little twist and added what art did for me and add some type of art pieces to it, give color to it, make some designs, make some creativity, have those who are writing at the same time, put a little bit of their heart into it, and um, give messages of love, give messages of encouragement, give messages of communication that they would probably like to hear if they were in particular situations. And that's when I started my project on that. Um, and so for the last going on 2 years, I've poured into working on that, growing programs with that, still having that base of art as a wellness space for people to express very positive feelings or feelings of understanding, relation, love, encouragement to those who may not have that or need to hear it or have that reinforced. And just knowing that a stranger in, I should say, in familiarity, but not a stranger as a being experiencing life, is reaching out to you, or you're receiving something to say, hey, I don't know you, but I'm thinking about you and I want you to do well. This can be very, very healing for a lot of people. It can be just right on time. And sometimes, like, I mean, if you're writing to someone or you're sending a note to someone, like we have this culture of sending memes and stuff like that. And haven't you had one that's one point where you receive it and it goes, you know what, I needed that right on time. Oh, this was just what I needed to hear. Now, if that impacts you personally from someone you know, it is just as impactful from someone that you don't know. It was giving it to someone and receiving it from someone. Because that human connection I've learned through this wellness journey is what makes that so palpable. And so, again, as the peer advocate, my advocacy has been through connecting the dots to resources that I find, using things that I have um, benefited from, and sharing in the communities that either do not have access to it or don't have enough or not frequent access to it. Um, and advocating through nonprofit organizations, taking training courses, taking um, semesters, seminars, webinars, just gathering information, and then sharing it on social media platforms for the social wellness aspect, the emotional and mental health wellness aspect of being in person doing the project, or being digitally, like through Zooms and stuff, having art classes or workshops, rather, not really classes, but workshops. Um, um, Speaking on platforms like this. speaking on, interviewing with others who want to talk about mental health awareness. I did a YouTube channel, a YouTube interview with Broken Land TV about what is love, and the piece was mental health, and he interviewed me in a similar form that we're doing now, but it was had a bit more Q&A. And then just last month, raising awareness and raising funds for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I do that once a year. But it's beyond fundraising. I actually get out there and, speak about mental health awareness. And I did a panel just 3 weeks ago, a community panel about let's talk about mental health, and it was very rich and very engaged with community members who were coming from a place where they were experiencing the cultural, boundaries and bonds and traumas that they've experienced that had a barrier with mental health for them, and how all the panelists, we had a social worker and a psychologist, amazing women, tapping into each piece that was being discussed. And I was just as the advocate being asked and giving questions and answering things about what it's like to have or live with a diagnosis, what does PTSD mean, and how did I navigate and live through life, and does it get better, things like that. Because one thing I wanted to really emphasize is wellness or improving or healing does not suddenly make you this superhero. You're not suddenly this perfect person and everything's great and everything's wonderful. Nothing can bother you. Nothing can feed you. That's toxic positivity. I'm full stop. That's just not something I'm into because it's not real. You can have a more resilient, and at the same time, you are still human. And if you get to a place of heaviness, a place where you're feeling sad, a place where you're feeling at your human space, you know, you know, you have that self-awareness and acceptance that you're not okay. There's no more shame to it. There's no more hiding it or feeling bad about it or whatever you were going through before. And that's how you can wrap your arms around your human soul, around your human spirit, and embrace that and accept that when you have a better space in your life. And then that healing can feel more like a, a reset, uh, a break, as opposed to, you know, um, a completely devastating experience. And even if it is super, super intense, it's like you have this, this backup, like this support, whether it's therapy, whether it's support groups, whether it's meditative practices, whether it is holistic healing, whether it's all of the above, or um, just having sometimes one good friend to talk to that you may not have had before, who's a peer to peer that can understand you. And whatever that wellness can look like, that's healing. That's, mindfulness. That is what can help a person maintain their human space, maintain that this journey we call life, you know, and yeah, I think I was just going on tangents. I don't know. I'm not used to doing all this talking and not being asked anything at some point.
No, it's very
So
powerful.
I
It's
hope
very
everybody's still
powerful.
awake.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, what do you think is some of the stigma around mental health?
Mm, that's a long list, but the main stigmas is that I'm going to speak from from this platform of as a person of color. And one of the things I've learned as a person of color that's a big stigma is that that's not for our people. That's not us. That's the other race or other people's race, whatever that is. But that's not us. We've been through I hear, well, we've been through slavery. We've been through this. We've been through so much. So if you're it's been, the stigma is that if you're in tune with your human emotions, if you're in tune with not being okay, it's almost as if it's a weakness because of the ancestral trauma of slavery, because the ancestral trauma of the very tormentive migration process, because not everybody was enslaved. You know, we've had migrants. We had a lot of migration stages, you know, in and out of the United States, the North American, South, and all of that. And sometimes those trips were not pleasant. You know, they had to go through hardships also. Um, and so there's the biggest barrier, I think, is embracing um, fear, embracing, really just stopping to embrace that, stopping to heal from that or receive that. It's this survival, 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 survival. No, keep go, 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 go. If you stopping, and I don't necessarily mean physically stopping, I mean taking, you know, taking inventory for yourself, or taking inventory in your body, taking inventory of your mind, taking inventory of your brain, and actually paying enough attention to it instead of just continuing to ignore it until you can't ignore it anymore, because now you're physically breaking down, or you're mentally, you know, snapped and you didn't even realize why. um I think the stigma comes from that it's not our, it's not us to stop and pay attention to that, and that's, it's a luxury to do that, or it's the other racial groups problem. I think that's the biggest thing. Or we weren't built for that. We're not built that way. We're bigger than that. Like it's a, like it's something wrong with pain. Like there's something wrong with addressing and acknowledging devastation, hurt, betrayal, whatever that looks like, um, violation, whatever, instead of just putting it on your shoulder and either violently avenging it, not saying that we all do that, or just tucking it away, putting it away and going, well, and excusing it and saying, well, my ancestors been through worse, or my grandmother's been through worse, or, you know, my whoever fought and so and so and so. So I don't have to, I'll be fine. And you might be, but at the same time, when you don't feel like you're going to be supported if you're not fine, then that's illness. That can lead to becoming an illness. That can lead to becoming a um, a repetition of trauma. It can be a repetition of generational trauma. Again, I'm not a guru, but I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I've learned from my trainings that this is what happens. And it happens not all the time, but it's a very high percentage. So the stigma is not really, you know, embracing that mental health is health. It is health. It's your mental, the health of your mind, the health of your mindful set, the health of your cognitive understanding, the health of your emotional intelligence, the health of your, you know, the pulse of your emotional regulation, the health of your self-regulation. It's just like a pulse. It's just like taking a breath test. It's just like taking a CAT scan. It's all of that. If it's physical, your mind is the center, and the body follows. The mind and body have to be in unison, in harmony. And so if there's a lot of things going on in your mind, whether right away or over time, it will, you will feel something. It will break down something. You can internalize pain in your body. You can internalize, and I don't mean from any physical activity. You can internalize it when you're feeling tense, if you're feeling tight, if you're feeling discomforts almost year after year and they're getting worse, because there's nothing that's being done to release that, to expunge that from your body. And that's another way of making yourself physically sick if you're not handling what's going on with your mind. So I think the biggest thing is um, cultural education. Yeah, education. I said all that to say education, especially culturally, especially ancestral education, going back and learning about our healers. If we learn about our healers in the cultural times and our older, back in the times, we had healers for mental and emotional health. We had we had that's why they were called wise men and wise women. We had our version of counselors. We had our version of um, mental healers, spiritual healers, physical healers. So this was part of the culture to, seek someone who could help ease you, to do shadow work, to do breath work, to do um, spiritual purging or whatever was needed, depending on what your ailment or issue was. So if we come back to that and really embrace that, it would be just a whole different vibe, at least culturally, for me. That's what I see. Education. Yeah.
Okay, that totally makes sense. And yes, your body keeps the score. And one of the handouts when I'm taping at events, I have this handout, your
There's a
emotional
book called
pain
that.
chart. Huh? That's
There's a
what?
book that's
Yeah,
called The Body Keeps the
your body
Score.
keeps the score. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was first introduced to that concept of your body holding on when I saw something about your emotional pain chart, how how
Mm-hmm.
the different traumas and experiences get trapped, in our bodies, and understanding like this ease always has an energetic foundation. It's like it's like, okay, you're not addressing this. Okay, we'll give you like a little nudge. You're not addressing it, we're gonna give you a shove. You're not addressing this, and then
Mm-hmm.
the big thing comes. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, our body is so fascinating, how our body records that, and how our body is so sensitive and really lets us know like, hey, you may not want to get in this situation, or be around particular people or whatever. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, the stigma, I think the stigma, so the education is very important.
Mm-hmm. And I concur to that um because for so many years I didn't know what was going on with me or what have you. Obviously I lived life and I was able to navigate, but it's not that you're going to navigate for some. However, your body keeps score, like you said. And to this day, even though I'm pretty much in a much well managed place, I still get severe back pain. I still get fatigue if I am in certain places because my cellular structure from being young, they're talking about 20 something years or what have you, because I just turned 50 Tuesday. So we're talking about 20 years of that cellular reproduction of that imprint that's in, that was in my body that reacted a certain way, that even though now, sure, I can handle certain things way better and I can manage certain things way better, but I still feel pain. I still feel pain, and the pain isn't as much as it used to be, but I know why. And so it's slowly changing, because now that I'm learning different things, and I've, like I said, with holistics and with different practices, it's starting to recognize, oh, okay, this is okay. There's new cells that are growing in me that do not respond as a pain. It doesn't respond as a tiredness as much, but it's still there. But I can feel the change and I can feel the difference. But I know where it comes from. And it's going to take some time. I mean, I'm undoing 20 years of flight, fight, flight, flight, So that's a long time. So I'm probably going to be going through this a little bit more. But I get it and I know how to manage it. And if I didn't have the education of the damage, like, if you have heart disease and you didn't know from eating poor foods, your heart was fine at first, but now it's diseased. Um, you know, for me, it's been decades of, unnecessarily adrenaline and unnecessary hormones coming out of my body. So, now it understands it doesn't have to do that like it used to. It recognizes the real difference because I trained it to, but it's taking, you know, it has to unlearn what it's learned a little bit
Yes.
longer. Yeah.
It's the reprogram. It's the reprogramming. No, and the breaking old, the not so breaking, but like transcending old habits. And it's great that you're able to be aware of like your triggers or whatever. I always feel that it's a real important sign of growth when you're able to recognize like, oh, this is happening. I know what this is, as opposed to just like
Mm,
blindly like reacting. Like
mm,
if you just have the awareness, I think just having the awareness is very powerful because
mm,
you're coming from a point of, yeah, I am no, I know what's happening. I'm aware of what's happening. I'm aware of what this is
mhm,
reminding me of or bringing up.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. And the beauty of awareness, it also helps you to move forward. It also, because for some awareness, it's like, oh, I don't recognize what this, for me, for example, I've come, for certain things, I've come to a place where I can either be at, I'm aware that this is happening, but I know that I don't have to react this way, or I know that I'm okay and this is, I know how to there's nothing going to happen or whatever. And in some aspects, for example, I even wrote a post about it. Um, I'm able to, um, what's the word I'm saying? I'm able to confront, whereas for some they would avoid, to still avoid. Whereas there's some things I'm able to confront. A perfect example is um, last month, I actually went for the first time in 17 years to the World Trade Center Memorial. I hadn't been there since its inception because I just, I had, just short and sweet version is that I used to work in the area. I used to work for an agency. And so I had to go to that area every week. And the week that 9/11 happened was the week I went on an interview somewhere else. So I literally watched the fact that I survived that happen right before my eyes. And it's just as traumatic as losing. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. Let me just say that. It's a lot to see, what you totally diverted and not be able, and simultaneously not be able to help anyone else escape that. So having that 1, 2, sometimes three punch, um, um, because I missed it by minutes. Like I missed it by minutes. So, and that on top of the fact that I had other things going on with me was just an it added to it. It was like literally icing on the cake. And I had just avoided going to Manhattan. I avoided going anywhere in the area. It was a lot. And so I don't expect everyone to really understand that, but I know I wasn't the only one. So right after the walk for NAMI walks, after I separated from my team member, something in my spirit said to me, go take a walk. Go take a walk down there and just go down there and just be in the area. And I did. And I admit my heart was racing, my heart was pounding, my palms were sweating, and I didn't feel afraid though, but my body was doing what it would used to do, but my mind was in control. My spirit was in control to say, okay, it's just doing what it's going to do, but you're in control. You're all right. And I made it there. I prayed, I cried, I stayed there for at least 45 minutes. It was raining and all that, and none of that bothered me. And I literally, the water, the smell of the water from the memorial, the sight, the sound, it was literally like I literally felt the ancestral energy, but at the same time, it felt healing and it felt connecting. And it's a feeling that I don't even know how to describe, but I don't have the sadness of feeling like, wow, why couldn't I save anybody? You know what I mean? type of thing, like this accountability that I had no manner or way of even having. That I don't know why, but for some reason I felt accountable. Like, why couldn't I save some? Why couldn't I have warned? Why? I don't know why, but that was part of the, the disorder that I have. It does that. Um, and it was just very, very healing. But it took me 17 years. And I did it. I finally did it. And I feel so much better. I feel so much different then. But that's a confrontation. For some people, it'll never happen. They're just good at just this boundary is as far as I'll go, and that's it. And I can have this for the rest of my life, and I'm fine. And for some, it could be like, okay, I've had this for a while. Let's let's push this far, and let's push this far, and let's see what happens. They're ready. So healing and grieving for some can take some time, and some it cannot. But through your journey, you learn how to build the tools to do that, to get there, and see how far you can go in this journey called life. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that.
Now, again, stories heal. Stories heal. Sharing stories is healing because you don't know who's watching now or watching the replay, and your story lets them know that they're not alone.
No, you're definitely not. No, you're definitely not. I mean, obviously, you may be physically right now in your home alone. You may be physically by yourself. And I've been there. I call NYC well a lot. Sometimes when I don't have someone to talk to, it's a call a service, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can text, you can talk, you can chat, and they have counselors on the line. This is in New York City, and it's a blessing. And you can just, if you're feeling in a certain way, you can call them, you can message them. They even give you referrals if you feel finally, if you may feel like, oh, maybe I could go to a counselor or a therapist, something like that. They even give you referrals if you want, or they'll just talk to you. And so I use that still sometimes to this day. So you're definitely not alone. Um, um, Writing that as an affirmation sometimes. I am not alone. I'm just not. I'm not alone. I am enough. It's coming a phrase now, but it's not really a phrase. It's a mantra. It's an affirmation that you are enough, you know, even if you made mistakes, even if you upset somebody, you learn how to make atonements. You learn how to, you know, seek or receive forgiveness and forgive yourself. There's so many different ways to affirm your blessed, sacred soul, even because it's human, because humans are perfectly imperfect. And that's okay that we're perfectly imperfect. Um, so yeah, you're definitely not alone. I hope I've
So,
had a positive impact. I always pray that. I always pray that.
so how did you become a peer mental health professional?
Well, that's the thing. That's the disclaimer. I'm not a professional. I am a um, peer mental health. As I was explaining, a peer mental health advocate is an advocate that has experienced what they're going through. Now, there is an actual career, a paid career to become a peer mental health advocate, which I'm going to pursue on the professional level. Now, on that level is where you will get trainings from um, um, a mental health facility, in the clinical realms, and also in the from nonprofit organizations that actually are training folks to become in certifications, those things like that. But as where I'm speaking from now, I'm speaking from a person who advocates through like I said, through what I've learned and through what I've experienced, I go out voluntarily in the community and share my resources and built this project and started my wellness brand, my creative art wellness brand, through that, through those means. But if I wanted to become someone who is like paid to do it, professionally do it, I can. Yeah, there's actually is a position that has that. And I'm actually interested in doing that too. So yeah, if that makes sense.
No, no, it's something that's kind of intriguing to me as well, looking to work in human services. Like, yeah, that sounds like that
Hmm.
could be up my alley also.
Hmm.
And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you're not a professional, but do you provide any kind of services for people? Any work that you do on behalf of people?
Right now, I do multiple things. Right now, I what I provide as far as services, I'm available for things like this for public engagement, community engagement. I'm available to speak about the experience of living with a diagnosis of PTSD. If someone is looking for someone who can speak from the space of it, I am available to have
Uh-oh. Oh no, Optimum, what's happening? Okay. Okay, I think we have a frozen situation here. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to um, end the broadcast at this time, since it seems that we do have a technical issue. So this has been Transformation Thursday, week 133. And our topic for this evening was mental health and wellness. And our speaker, Miss Amarie, she can be found on Instagram under Distractible Me. So please, you can also follow my YouTube channel, Bronx Holistic Healing, where I will be uploading the video from this evening's session. You can also check my Instagram, Bronx Holistic Healing, and you can see the video from tonight's session. So thank you so much for tuning in. I know we had a slightly delayed start, but thank you for watching Transformation Thursday. And we'll see you next Thursday with a holistic, metaphysical, spiritual, empowering topic. Thank you very much and have a great evening.